Act 1. The Perfect Day in Hana. February 11th, 1979. The town of Hana, on the eastern tip of Maui, Hawaii. It is a Sunday. The air is thick with the scent of plumeria and the salt spray of the Pacific. Hana is a place apart from the rest of the world, isolated, lush, and deeply connected to the ocean. For the locals, the sea is not just a view. It is a way of life. It provides food, it provides work, and it commands respect. On this particular morning, the ocean looks inviting. The water is glassy and calm. The sky is a brilliant, cloudless blue. It is the kind of day that fishermen dream of. 5 friends gather at the harbor. They are young, strong men in the prime of their lives. They have grown up together, worked together, and today they're going fishing together. There is Scott Moorman, 27 years old. He is the new guy, a California transplant who fell in love with the island life. There is Benjamin Kalama, 38. Peter Hanchett, 31. Patrick Wozner, 26. And Ralph Maliakini, 27. They are known locally as the Hana Five. They are experienced watermen. They know the currents. They know the reefs. They load up a boat named the Sarah. It is a 17-foot Boston whaler. For those who know boats, a Boston whaler is considered unsinkable. It has a foam-filled hull that keeps it afloat even if it takes on water. It is a sturdy, reliable vessel. But it is small. 17 feet is not a lot of boat when you are facing the open Pacific. They pack coolers with soda and beer. They bring fishing gear. But they don't bring much food. They don't bring a radio. They don't bring life jackets. They don't bring flares. Why would they? They are only planning to be gone for a few hours. A quick run along the coast to catch some fish and enjoy the perfect weather. They tell their families they will be back by noon. At 10 a.m., the Sarah pushes off from the dock. The engine roars to life. The 5 men wave to friends on the shore. They are laughing, excited. They steer the small white boat out of the harbor and into the open blue. They are heading south, towards the Alan-Wahaha Channel, a stretch of water notorious for its treacherous currents, but also known for abundant fish. As the boat becomes a small speck on the horizon, the people of Hana go about their Sunday. They have no idea that the perfect day is about to turn into a nightmare. Around noon, the wind changes. It happens fast. The calm breeze turns into a gale. The glassy water begins to chop. Dark clouds, heavy with rain, roll in over the volcanic peaks of Maui. Within 2 hours, the Weather Service issues a small craft advisory. The wind is howling at 40 knots. The waves are swelling to 20 feet. It is a sudden, violent tropical storm. At the harbor, families begin to gather. They look out at the gray, angry ocean. They wait for the sound of the Sarah's engine. They wait for the white hull to cut through the waves. Noon comes and goes. 1 p.m. passes. 2 p.m. The storm rages. And the Sarah does not return. Act 2. The Needle in the Pacific. By late afternoon, the panic in Hana is palpable. The families of the 5 men contact the Coast Guard. What follows is one of the largest search and rescue operations in Hawaiian history. The U.S. Coast Guard deploys cutters, helicopters, and C-130 aircraft. They are joined by the local community. Fishermen take their own boats out into the dangerous swell, risking their lives to find their friends. Residents walk the miles of coastline, scanning the beaches for debris. They search for 5 days. They cover 73,000 square miles of ocean. But the ocean is vast, and a 17-foot boat is smaller than a grain of sand in a swimming pool. The storm has churned the water, making visibility poor. Hopes are raised and dashed repeatedly. A pilot reports seeing a boat drifting. A cutter races to the location, but finds nothing. A piece of wood washes ashore. It turns out to be driftwood. There is nothing. No oil slick. No floating cooler. No debris. No Sarah Joe. Experts are baffled. Even if the boat had capsized, a Boston whaler is supposed to float. It should be bobbing on the surface, upside down. If the boat sank, debris should have floated up. It is as if the ocean simply opened up and swallowed the boat and the 5 men whole. After 5 days, the Coast Guard formally suspends the search. They tell the families that survival in these conditions, without food or water, is unlikely. But the families refuse to give up. They pool their money. They hire private planes. They consult psychics who point to different spots on the map. They continue to search for weeks. Eventually, the money runs out. The private planes stop flying. A memorial service is held in Hana. The town mourns. 5 young men, gone in an instant. The Sarah Joe becomes a local legend, a ghost story whispered by fishermen. Years pass. The memory of the 5 men remains, but the hope of finding them fades. The ocean keeps its secrets. Until 10 years later. Act 3. The Ghost Island. The Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands are a remote chain of atolls in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They are located approximately 2,000 miles west of Hawaii. It is a place of blindingly white sand, turquoise lagoons, and absolute isolation. John Naughton, a marine biologist for the U.S. National Marine Fisheries Service, is on a research expedition. His mission is to survey the wildlife on Tongi Atoll, also known as Bokak Atoll. Tongi is uninhabited. It is a ghost island. It is desolate, dry, and brutally hot. There is no fresh water. The only residents are thousands of seabirds and hermit crabs. It is one of the most remote places on Earth. Humans rarely set foot here. On September 9th, 1988, Naughton and his team are walking along the desolate coastline of the atoll. They're looking for nesting turtles. Instead, they find a mystery. Lying on the beach, half buried in the white coral sand, is a boat. It is a small, fiberglass boat. It is battered, bleached by the sun, and stripped of its paint. But the hull is intact. Naughton steps closer. He can see the registration numbers faded on the bow, HA5607E. He doesn't recognize the number immediately, but he recognizes the make. It is a Boston whaler. He takes notes. He takes photos. He knows that finding a boat this far out is unusual. But then he sees something else. About 60 yards away from the boat, just at the edge of the scrub line where the beach meets the vegetation, there is a pile of stones. It is not a natural formation. The coral stones have been carefully stacked. They form a rectangular mound. It looks like a grave. And protruding from the top of the mound is a piece of driftwood. It has been jammed vertically into the stones. A second, shorter piece of driftwood is tied across it horizontally with palm fronds. It is a crude handmade cross. Naughton feels a chill in the tropical heat. This island is uninhabited. It has been uninhabited for years. Who is buried here? And who built the grave? Act 4. The Jawbone. Naughton reports his findings. The registration number HA5607E is traced back to the records in Hawaii. The computer spits out a match. The boat is the Sarah Joe. The news shocks the investigators. The boat that vanished 10 years ago in Hawaii has turned up 2,000 miles away on a deserted island. But the discovery of the grave turns shock into bewilderment. A team is sent to Tongi Atoll to excavate the site. They carefully remove the coral stones. Beneath the stones, just a foot under the sand, they find a human skeleton. The skeleton is incomplete. It has been scattered, likely by crabs and rats over the years. But the skull is there, or rather, pieces of it. They find a lower mandible, a jawbone. They find bits of paper buried with the body. Small, square pieces of paper, about 3 inches by 3 inches. They look like foil or parchment. They are placed in a stack on top of the chest area of the skeleton. This is a ritualistic burial. Someone took care to place these papers here. The remains are collected and flown to the Central Identification Laboratory in Hawaii. The families of the Hana Five wait in agonizing suspense. For 10 years, they have wondered. Now they might have an answer. But there is only one body. Which one of the 5 friends made it to the island? Forensic odontologists examine the jawbone. They compare it to the dental records of the 5 missing men. The match is conclusive. The skeleton belongs to Scott Moorman, the 27-year-old new guy. The discovery brings a partial closure to the Moorman family, but it blows the mystery wide open for everyone else. Where are Benjamin, Peter, Patrick, and Ralph? If Scott died on the island, who buried him? A starving, dehydrated man cannot bury himself. He cannot stack heavy coral stones on top of his own body. He cannot tie a driftwood cross. Did the other 4 men survive the journey? Did they bury their friend and then set sail again, only to perish at sea? Or was there someone else on that island? Act 5. The Drift. Investigators try to reconstruct the journey of the Sarah Joe. How does a 17-foot boat drift 2,000 miles? Oceanographers analyze the currents. They determine that it is theoretically possible. The currents from Hawaii generally flow west. A drifting object could, over a period of 3 to 6 months, be carried to the Marshall Islands. But the condition of the boat raises questions. It was not smashed to pieces. It was not overturned. It was beached, relatively intact. This suggests it didn't crash onto the reef in a storm. It suggests it might have been guided in. Or, it suggests it drifted into the calm lagoon during a high tide. But the real impossible variable is time. Without food or fresh water, humans can survive maybe a week or 2 at sea. If they caught fish and drank rainwater, maybe a month. But the drift to Tongi takes 3 months minimum. It is highly unlikely that Scott Moorman arrived at the island alive. If he arrived dead, sloshing around in the bottom of the boat, who carried him 60 yards up the beach? Who dug the grave? The island was uninhabited. The U.S. government used to use nearby islands for nuclear testing in the 1950s, but Tongi was clean and empty. There were no official records of anyone visiting the island in the time frame when the boat would have arrived, mid-1979. So, we are left with a locked-room mystery on a global scale. A body in a grave on an empty island, thousands of miles from home. Act 6. The Good Samaritan Theory. The mystery of the burial consumed researchers. They looked for anyone who might have been near Tongi Atoll in 1979. The most plausible theory, and plausible is a strong word here, is the Good Samaritan theory. Perhaps a fishing vessel, maybe from Japan or Taiwan, was illegally fishing in the area. They spotted the boat drifting or washed ashore. They found the body of Scott Moorman. Out of respect for the dead, they stopped. They carried him ashore. They buried him. They made a cross because they recognized he was likely Western/Christian. Then, because they were fishing illegally, they left without reporting it. It makes sense. It explains the grave. It explains the lack of official records. But there are holes in this theory. Why only bury Scott? If the other 4 men were in the boat, why weren't there 5 graves? This implies that either A. The other 4 men fell out of the boat or died, and were pushed overboard long before the boat reached the island. Scott was the only one left in the boat. B. The other 4 men survived, buried Scott, and then left. But how? The Sarah Joe had no engine power left. They couldn't have sailed it away. Did they get rescued by the illegal fishing boat? If so, why did they never come home? And then there is the matter of the papers. The small stack of foil-like squares found on the skeleton's chest. Forensics couldn't determine what they were. Some say they looked like Chinese joss paper or spirit money, often used in Asian funerals to provide for the ancestor in the afterlife. This supports the theory of an Asian fishing crew finding the body. But other reports say the papers were just layers of post-it notes or a decomposing book. The evidence has degraded too much to be sure. Act 7. The Unsolved Puzzle. The finding of the Sarah Joe provided one answer, but birthed 1,000 questions. Scott Moorman's remains were returned to his family. He rests in peace. But for the families of Benjamin Kalama, Peter Hanchat, Patrick Wosner, and Ralph Maliakini, the nightmare continues. Their sons are not on the island. They were not in the grave. Did they die in the storm on that first night? Did they watch their friends die one by one of thirst and madness under the relentless sun? Did they push the bodies overboard to save space? Or is there a darker secret? Some conspiracy theorists point to the Marshall Islands' history of military testing. Did the Sarah Joe drift into a restricted zone? Did they see something they shouldn't have? But the simplest explanation is often the most tragic. The experts believe that in the chaos of the initial storm, the small boat was swamped. 4 of the men likely washed overboard and drowned within hours. Scott Moorman, perhaps tied to the boat or lucky enough to stay inside, died of exposure or dehydration days later. His body, preserved by the salt spray, drifted alone across the vast, empty Pacific for months. A ghost ship with a ghost captain. When it finally grounded on the sands of Tongi, strangers found him. Strangers who had enough humanity to bury him, but enough fear to keep it a secret. The grave on Tongi Atoll stands as a testament to 2 things: the unforgiving power of the ocean and the enduring kindness of strangers, whoever they were. The Sarah Joe sits rotting on that beach to this day, slowly being reclaimed by the sand and the sea, the only witness to the final, silent journey of the Hana Five.